Welcome back, everybody. Today is going to be another segment of the Pillars to Success with Dr. Paul David White. How are you doing, Dr.
Good.
White?
I'm great. It's been a great day.
So today, our main focal point is going to be centered around interpersonal connections and relationships within the journey to our growth and development.
Okay.
Success is often discussed as discipline, habits, or strategy, but rarely do we examine the people closest to us as a core pillar of success. What does success actually mean when relationships are factored into it? Why do people underestimate the influence of their social environment?
Great question. One of the things I think that cannot be overstated is that our interpersonal relationships will make or break us. As we tell small children, that certain maybe friends are not the best influence on them, and that they need to be careful of, the friends they make. The same applies for adults. We have to be careful how we approach these interpersonal relationships. And I would say in particular, romantic relationships have an enormous impact on our lives. And they can absolutely make or break a person, especially a person that is taking that journey of self-discovery and growth and trying to become a better version of themselves. And you might ask, well, okay, what does that really mean as far as, how does that translate to me? So I think that what's important to recognize is that the friendships that we make with individuals or the interpersonal relationships we have with romantic interests will have a dramatic effect on our lives, and so we need to take them very, very seriously. And we have to really, at the end, avoid individuals that are not going to be good for us or they're not going to help us, in our journey. And you may ask, well, what kinds of people are those? I think, some of the universal red flags are appropriate here.
How do we distinguish between emotionally comfortable relationships and growth-orientated ones?
Well, I think, the old adage, who we spend the most time with, we're, going to be like, or we're going to emulate in some way, absolutely is true. I think that as we spend time with individuals that are positive and optimistic, we take on some of those characteristics ourselves. I think individuals that are more negative or more pessimistic, we would probably take on some of those characteristics as well. So it's very, very important that we choose and we select these friendships and interpersonal relationships wisely.
Can success become normalized or diminished based on who surrounds us?
Yeah, so I think that the trick with that is that individuals that are positive, individuals that are optimistic are the types of individuals that are going to help us on our journey to success. I think individuals that represent maybe more of the negative qualities and human traits are going to make that more difficult. So we're going to put ourselves at a disadvantage, perhaps an extreme disadvantage, if we're hanging around people that are negative and pessimistic. We absolutely want to make sure that we're around people that uplift us, and in turn that we uplift as well.
At what point do we stop noticing that our circle is influencing our mindset?
I think if we stop growing, so if we kind of shut ourselves off to the opportunities that present themselves in the form of growth in our lives, that's when we basically settle upon that. And so I think that if we're not paying attention, if we're not actively aware of the influence our friends and close, love interests have upon our lives, then we're not plugged in. We're detached, and we're not progressing in our lives in a very meaningful way.
What are the warning signs of stagnation in a friendship or partnership?
Stagnation is interesting because we don't always notice it right away. It's very, very subtle. It happens very subtly. So, you might be going along and thinking everything is fine, and everything is not fine. I think that if you have a perpetual growth mindset, if you're an individual who is actively, self-assessing, you'll recognize stagnation or patterns of stagnation pretty quickly. I think if you're always challenging yourself, if your partner or your friends are always challenging themselves, they'll also recognize this. There'll be a mutual understanding that perhaps some things need to change. Perhaps there needs to be some other things added into the relationship, whatever that may be.
What boundaries are necessary to maintain growth while preserving relationships?
Well, I think boundaries, especially that revolve around respecting yourself and respecting the other person, are paramount. You absolutely have to have that mutual respect, and you have to, I think, at the core of it, also have a deep love for yourself. One of the interesting things I think a lot of people don't recognize in relationships is that they start with you. They start with you loving yourself, having a good relationship with yourself, and being kind and compassionate to yourself. And then, once you basically are able to provide that type of fuel for yourself, you're able to then provide that to others as well.
What are practical steps someone can take to elevate their environment when it comes to relationships?
I think choosing your relationships carefully. So I think, and this can't be overstated, as I said earlier, the wrong person will be detrimental to your relationship. And this whether it be friendship or romantic interests, these individuals can be very detrimental to long-term success and growth. So I think first and foremost we want to surround ourselves with individuals that share our values, for one, individuals that are trying to improve themselves and grow. I think the other thing that we need to keep in mind is that there are individuals out there that do not have our best interest in mind. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to be cautious when we're engaging with those types of individuals.
How do people we spend time with shape our identity over time?
I think the people that we spend the most time with have the largest, or make the biggest impact on us personally, and have the greatest amount of influence on us. That can't be overstated. We are the individuals that we continually spend most of our time with. I think that this behooves us then to choose very, very carefully, because some individuals are going to move the needle forward, while others perhaps may move the needle back. And if we're serious about self-improvement and growth, we're going to want to align with other individuals that share our values. We're not going to want to spend a lot of time with individuals that exude lots of negativity or pessimism.
Can success become normalized or diminished based on who we surround ourselves with?
Absolutely. I would say if you're looking to have long-term growth and have overall success in life, you need to be very careful who you spend time with, whether it be friendship or in romantic relationships. It's absolutely imperative that we choose correctly. Now, you may ask, well, what does that entail? I think that there are red flags. I think that there are things that we absolutely have to be careful with and to look at in other individuals. One of those things would be maybe individuals that have a substance abuse problem. They have difficulty maybe with alcohol or drugs. This is something that cannot be ignored. These individuals need to get help. Individuals that have untreated mental health problems are another group of individuals that we should probably avoid. They need help. They need to be working on themselves and counseling or whatever else they need. Individuals that maybe exhibit other types of personality behaviors such as narcissism, maybe individuals that have a touch of psychopathy or borderline personality disorder. These are individuals that we should probably stay clear from. And then, of course, people that have unresolved trauma, childhood trauma. And again, it's not that these people are inherently bad. It's just these people need to work on themselves. And I think a lot of times we think that, I can jump in and help these people. You can't. Nobody can. And it takes an extreme amount of hubris to think that you can basically change somebody. You're not going to be able to. They can only change themselves just as you can only change yourself. I think, the trick is to recognize, these patterns in people and not shun them in the extent like, you can still be a good example to them. You can still throw them a life preserver, but you have to be careful forming interpersonal relationships or romantic relationships with these individuals.
Can you personally give an example where a friendship changed your thinking for better or for worse?
Absolutely. I'm thinking of actually a particular friend of mine who I watched grow and really blossom. And I think that, many times in life, it's all about timing, right? It's meeting people or engaging with that person at the right time. And, I watched this person grow, and then, of course, I myself probably grew as well. And so, we were able to really, synergize that growth that we individually, created into an even better friendship. So I think that, you never know. Everybody's journey is so different, and what helps one person to grow may be entirely different for another person. We all need different things, and we all need to be patient and give ourselves grace in that way.
What are the warning signs of stagnation in a friendship or partnership?
I think the warning signs are very, very subtle. I think that they're very easy to miss sometimes. In particular, because we get very comfortable in relationships. And when we get comfortable in relationships, we're not always paying attention. I think it's very important to always, as I've said before, be performing, some sort of audit on yourself, or some sort of self-assessment. I think if you are continually, doing a self-assessment or being reflective, you're going to know when a friendship or a romantic relationship starts to stagnate. And then you may look for ways to break out of that stagnation. You may talk about this with your partner or your friend as well and come up with some different ideas. I think it is normal, though, for that process to happen. Friendships basically rise, they grow, they plateau sometimes. And so I think these are normal parts of a friendship or a relationship. But I think recognizing it is important, and then, finding a way to ameliorate that is equally important.
How do you balance loyalty with personal growth?
Oh, wow. I think first and foremost, you have to be loyal to yourself. And that may seem like an odd thing to say, but loyalty to oneself is holding oneself accountable. In particular, when you make promises to yourself, when you have goals or objectives that you've set for yourself, reaching those goals, making improvements in your life, that's being loyal to yourself. So I think first and foremost, you have to be loyal to yourself. Once you've developed a strong baseline loyalty to yourself, I think that you can absolutely project that onto a friendship or into a romantic relationship. I think it's absolutely important. I think loyalty is the bedrock of a friendship or a romantic interest. And it has to be solid, and it has to be something that both individuals, both parties can count on. And it has to be reciprocal as well.
In what ways do romantic relationships impact career and financial decisions?
They have a huge impact on financial decisions in particular, and just an overall success in life. As I stated before, the wrong person can put you at an extreme disadvantage when it comes to your goals, your objectives. I think it is absolutely paramount to align yourself with someone that shares very similar values, which implies that you yourself have to be a person that shares the values of self-improvement and growth. One of the interesting things on this journey is that you need to increase your value. We all are born with a certain level or a certain intrinsic value, but we build upon that value. And the idea in creating value for yourself is that you make yourself more rare. You make yourself more indispensable, more irreplaceable. And I think if you were to really seriously think about that in life, that's a good thing in any facet of your life. If you're irreplaceable at work, if you're irreplaceable as a father, as a husband, a wife or mother, or as a child, whatever area in life that you're in, I think having a greater value or increasing your value is a good thing. And so I think that's a thing to basically keep in mind when it comes to romantic relationships, is that you are increasing your value, you're aligning with someone that's also increasing their value, and individuals, both of them, independently and interdependently, are working together.
What does healthy accountability look like in a friendship or romantic relationship?
I'm sorry, repeat that again, Cedric.
What does it mean? What does healthy accountability look like in a friendship or a romantic relationship?
Honesty, being truthful to yourself first and foremost, because that's the worst person to lie to is yourself. So, but being truthful is the best way. It's the most transparent way to truly engage in a friendship or a romantic interest. If you're transparent, if you're open, if you're authentic with these individuals, and of course, starting with yourself, truthful and authentic with yourself, then you're going to be able to transfer that to your interpersonal relationships as well.
How do you handle relationships that are meaningful but misaligned?
I think if we're in tune with ourselves, and if the other person is in tune with themselves, we'll identify this pretty quickly. I've personally been in situations where this has happened, where it's a positive, and there definitely is a positive synergy about the relationship, but it is perhaps misaligned. And there could be a number of reasons why. It could be timing. It could be a situation where maybe there is a slight difference in values and such, or maybe one person's growing at an accelerated pace, or at a different pace than the other person. So I think it really depends. But I think that, we shouldn't write off these relationships necessarily, but it should give us pause, and we should probably take a little closer look at it and see if it's something that is going to be feasible, or if it's something that maybe needs a little bit more time, or needs a little bit more effort in some other way.
If someone listens to this episode and wants to improve their life trajectory, where should they start with their relationships?
Start with yourself. Start with loving yourself, learning how to love yourself, even the parts that are difficult to love. And I know that sounds maybe a bit cliche, but it is absolutely true. You have to start having a good relationship with yourself. Loving, having kindness and empathy for yourself. Once you develop a strong relationship with yourself, you will be better able, more capable of engaging in a highly effective relationship with someone else, whether that be a friendship or a romantic interest. It all starts with you working on yourself. yourself. Now, the idea here is that the other person is working on themselves as well. And that's critical. You, again, are aligning with someone else that's very similar, shares very similar values to you, and that where growth and self-improvement is important to them as well. I think at the end of the day, too, we have to understand that individuals that are open to change are the types of individuals that we want to align ourselves with as well. There's not much you can do with somebody that doesn't feel they need to change, doesn't feel they need to improve. There's not a whole lot you can do with that. You're really essentially just wasting your time. You need to align with individuals that share, there's a shared value system of growth and change and nurturing oneself.
In the follow-up last question I want to end this with is going to be, what is one mindset shift that can immediately improve the quality of someone's social circle?
I think basically taking on a positive mindset or an optimistic mindset. I think that, and I've stated this in another video, it's very easy to be pessimistic. It's very easy to find problems. I think the individuals that truly have success in life, that truly enjoy a degree of success in life, are individuals that choose to look at life optimistically, even if they haven't necessarily been given lots of things to be optimistic about. They're still able to look at the world through a positive lens. And I think that's absolutely really all it is. I think if you're able to change that way of thinking, you're going to look even at your romantic relationships or your friendships, interpersonal friendships, in such a way that you're going to find the best in people. You're not going to be looking at problems. You're not going to be saying this person bugs me because of this. I don't like them because of this. You're going to be actively looking at them in such a way that basically that you're inspired by them. And of course, we all have idiosyncrasies, right? Where none of us are perfect. We all have flaws. But I think if we are genuinely looking at the world with optimism, and especially our interpersonal relationships and romantic relationships in this way, we're going to have a much greater degree of success, a much greater degree of happiness and peace.
Thank you so much for your time today, Dr. White. And to everybody who is listening to this, I'm going to leave everybody with a quote. Success is rarely built in isolation. It is shaped, reinforced, and sometimes limited by the people closest to us. Thank you for your time, Dr. White, as always, and everybody take care.
My pleasure. Thank you.